Welcome to LoyalTV. Today we're at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City to pay our respects to the West's greatest rodeo icons.
Cowboys are the most popular image worldwide, bar none. No figure in history that comes close. Whenever I think of cowboys, what I think of is the nameless and faceless and unmemorialized drovers who pushed cattle out of Texas up to railheads in Kansas and helped build America, because the cowboy built America. So it's a far more layered story than people think it is. Part of the original mission of the National Cowboy Hall of Fame, as it was called when we opened, was to not only pay tribute to the multicultural men and women who were part of the building of the American West, but also the animals that were involved with that, because you can't have cowboys without horses and cows. So beginning in the mid-1960s, there were efforts on the part of museum officials at that time to create memorials. Ultimately, that turned into a handful of graves of actual animals that are buried on the grounds. But for the most part, they're memorials to particular horses and particular cattle that played a role not only in trail driving days, but also animals who competed along with the athletes in rodeo. In the late 60s, a gentleman from Oklahoma City acquired a rather large longhorn steer named Abilene, and he became the museum's mascot. And he lived to be 19 years old, and then he was interred out there. He was allegedly 5'9" at the shoulder and an 8-foot horn spread and weighed close to 2,500 pounds. So he was big, and he was used in parades and as representative of the National Cowboy Museum all over the United States, because, as I said before, you can't have cowboys without cows, and he represented those herds that came out of Texas, ultimately up to railheads in Kansas that passed through Oklahoma. Midnight and 5 minutes to midnight are legendary as unrideable horses, and their marker out there includes some prose that was written to go along with their monuments. And so, you know, it's interesting that these animals are as much performers as the contestants are, and they know when to turn it on and turn it off. And Tornado, he's one of the 4 animals that's buried out there, the last animal, in fact, to be buried out there. He was half Hereford and half Brahma, and he became unrideable for the most part, and the legend has it that he was only ridden once. It was thought that he ought to be memorialized, and the gentleman who was involved with his ownership, the latter part of his career, his life, Jim Shoulders, requested that he be buried on the grounds, and that's what ultimately happened. That was part of the effort on the part of the National Cowboy Museum, is to honor these animals in some way or another so they're not forgotten. Nobody's forgotten if you continue to speak their name, and that's why we memorialize them here.
Join us again next week for more of the best Oklahoma stories you've never heard, here on LoyalTV.